Jasper thought he had seen it all: the quirks of urban life, the oddities of his job in customer service, and the never-ending absurdities of a world filled with influencers and avocado toast enthusiasts. But nothing prepared him for the day he stumbled upon the most ridiculous sign he had ever seen: "Enter the maze of sacrifice, if you dare." It was late evening, and he had just polished off a large pepperoni pizza and a 2-liter bottle of soda, his way of coping with the aftermath of a particularly dull Monday. He glanced at the sign, then at his phone, where a horror movie marathon had consumed the last 3 hours of his life. What could possibly go wrong, he muttered, a cheeky grin plastered on his face. Jasper stepped through the entrance, half expecting a wave of cheesy fog and spooky sound effects. Instead, he was met by a rather odd figure in a flowing robe, who looked like he had just walked off the set of a low-budget horror film. Priest Malachi, as he introduced himself with an exaggerated bow, had an air of theatricality about him, all flailing arms and wild eyes. "Ah, brave soul! You have entered the realm of the maze," he exclaimed, voice booming as if he were addressing a stadium. "Legend has it that every person who dares to tread these halls is bound to face their deepest fears and perhaps become a sacrifice." Sacrifice? Jasper snorted, unable to help himself. "Look, I just had dinner. I'm not interested in becoming a meal for the local ghouls, thanks." Malachi's face remained a mask of seriousness, though the corners of his mouth twitched. "Only those who embrace their fears can escape. Follow me." Jasper shrugged, thinking it all a great joke. "This is what I get for watching too many slasher films," he mumbled, following the priest into the dimly lit entrance of the maze. The first thing he noticed was the walls, unlike any he had ever seen. They seemed to shimmer and shift, almost breathing. He raised an eyebrow. "Great. I've entered a living Instagram filter." With a bemused expression, he ventured further inside, the laughter echoing down the corridor behind him, quickly swallowed by the suffocating silence of the maze. As he turned a corner, Jasper found himself face to face with a translucent figure, a ghostly apparition who looked just as surprised to see him. Hey there," Jasper said, scratching his head. "You're not here to haunt me, are you?" The figure, who introduced himself as Gerald, seemed more interested in his own predicament than in terrorizing Jasper. "I can't seem to complete this crossword puzzle," Gerald lamented, gesturing wildly at a floating piece of parchment with cryptic clues that seemed to dissolve before Jasper's eyes. "Talk about a midlife crisis," Jasper chuckled, easing the tension. "Listen, I think you might be stuck in here because you haven't solved your own problems." "Problems?" Gerald cried. "I'm stuck in a maze. I'm a ghost. I can't even finish a crossword." Okay. Deep breaths, Jasper said, now more amused than scared. "What's the clue?" As Gerald started to explain, the walls of the maze seemed to pulse in time with Jasper's heartbeat. He realized he was somewhere extraordinary, or absurd, depending on your perspective. The corridor twisted and turned, leading him deeper into a world that felt more like a fever dream than a legitimate challenge. His first trial appeared as a series of darkened rooms. Each one he entered taunted him with his most profound insecurities, like a carnival barker of nightmares. The walls shifted again, and suddenly, he was surrounded by a heap of customer complaints, each letter dripping with frustration. "Your wait time was unacceptable," one said. "Your service representative was rude," another complained. "Wow, this is worse than my actual job," Jasper groaned, stepping back as shadows loomed over him. "Face your failures." Malachi's voice boomed from somewhere unseen. "Only then can you pass." Jasper rolled his eyes but found himself pondering the weight of each complaint. The shadows morphed into grotesque versions of his former bosses, their faces twisted into masks of judgment. One even bore the likeness of his high school English teacher, Mrs. Kavanaugh, who had once told him he had no future in writing. "I'm not a failure," Jasper yelled at the shadowy figures. "I'm just taking my time." The shadows paused, flickering, as if they weren't sure how to respond. Jasper took a deep breath and faced them, realizing that it wasn't their judgment that scared him, it was his own. I've made mistakes, sure, but I've also learned. And if I want to write, I'll do it on my own terms. The walls shook, and the shadows evaporated into mist, revealing the next passageway. Not bad for a guy with a pizza-filled belly, he muttered to himself, relief washing over him. But his moment of triumph was short-lived. The next room he entered shifted dramatically. He found himself surrounded by mirrors reflecting a kaleidoscope of his life choices. Each reflection depicted him as a hollow shell, friendless and alone, lost in a sea of regrets. Jasper, a voice echoed from one of the mirrors, a familiar face appearing. It was Charlie, his childhood friend, now transformed into a ghostly image with a forlorn look. You've abandoned us, man. What happened to our dreams? Dude, I didn't abandon you. Jasper shot back, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. I grew up. People change. But you left us behind, Charlie's reflection said, sadness oozing from his words. You can't face this alone. Jasper clenched his fists. I know I can't. I'm just trying to figure it out. He turned from the mirrors, stepping deeper into the maze, where the oppressive atmosphere thickened around him. The next room was unlike the others. It was vast, and at its center loomed the uncertainty beast, a towering creature with mismatched eyes and a toothy grin. So, what's your plan, Jasper? It teased, voice dripping with mockery. Gonna let fear run your life? Or will you take a risk? Seriously? Jasper laughed, caught off guard by the absurdity of it all. You think I have a plan? I'm just trying to survive my 20s. The beast leaned closer, its breath a gust of chaos. Face the void, Jasper. Embrace the unknown. Jasper's heart raced. The void beckoned, a swirling darkness that promised everything and nothing. I can't, he shouted, the weight of his uncertainties crashing down on him. What if I fail? But what if you don't? The uncertainty beast replied, tilting its head. With a deep breath, Jasper stepped toward the void. Fine. Here goes nothing. He plunged into the darkness, surrendering to the uncertainty swirling around him. As Jasper plunged into the void, a rush of sensations enveloped him. He felt weightless, as though floating through a dream, the darkness swirling around him like ink in water. For a fleeting moment, he was free, free from expectations, free from the prying eyes of judgment. But that feeling was short-lived, replaced by a sudden jolt as he landed unceremoniously on solid ground. Dazed, Jasper blinked against a bright light that illuminated a new chamber. He found himself in a bizarre, carnival-like setting, with vibrant colors and peculiar sounds. A cheerful tune played in the background, and in front of him stood a booth manned by a familiar figure, Priest Malachi, now adorned in a clown wig and oversized shoes. Welcome to the final trial, Malachi announced, twirling a large prop balloon that bore the words, Embrace your future, in a garish font. What is this? A circus? Jasper asked, incredulous. Is this part of the maze or a really bad party? Both, my dear contestant. Malachi cackled, his laughter infectious. This is where you face the final hurdle. You must choose how to proceed. Will you embrace the joy of your future, or will you let fear keep you trapped? Jasper rolled his eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. All right, what's the catch? Malachi gestured to a spinning wheel behind him, decorated with images of various life paths, an artist, a chef, a world traveler, and even a professional cat cuddler. Spin the wheel. Whatever it lands on will reveal your potential future. Is this like a game show? Jasper laughed, stepping closer. Do I get a prize if I win? The prize is your future, dear boy. Malachi responded theatrically, eyes sparkling with mischief. Now, spin. Jasper took a deep breath, his hand gripping the wheel. He could feel the weight of his indecision pressing down on him. What did he really want? The thought of spinning the wheel felt like the embodiment of everything he had feared: unpredictability, vulnerability, and the chance of failure. But what if it was also a chance for something incredible? With a determined shove, he spun the wheel, watching it blur past the choices. As it slowed, his heart raced. The pointer finally came to a stop, landing squarely on Ryder. The booth erupted in a shower of confetti as Malachi cheered, "Congratulations. You have chosen to embrace your creativity. But be warned, dear Ryder, the path ahead will not be easy." "Like I'm not used to that," Jasper muttered, feeling a surge of hope intertwined with anxiety. Suddenly, the colorful carnival backdrop melted away, replaced by a stark, white room filled with paper and pens. The walls echoed with the sound of a typewriter clacking away on its own. A figure emerged from the shadows, an ethereal version of himself, hunched over the typewriter, scribbling feverishly. "What's going on?" Jasper asked, confusion flooding his mind. "Am I supposed to write something? I don't even know how to start." The ghostly version of him looked up, eyes filled with both desperation and determination. "You're afraid of starting, aren't you? You've let fear of judgment keep you silent for too long." Jasper stepped back, the weight of those words hitting him hard. "But what if I fail? What if nobody cares?" "Exactly," his ghostly self replied, smirking slightly. "What if they do? What if you find your voice in the chaos? Stop worrying about what others think and just write." The typewriter clattered louder, drowning out his doubts. Jasper felt a sudden compulsion to sit down, to pour his thoughts onto the page. He grabbed a pen from the desk and began to write. The words flowed out like water from a broken dam, surprising him with their clarity and power. He wrote about his fears, his failures, his hopes, everything he had kept bottled up inside. "I can't believe I'm doing this," he murmured, the joy of creation igniting a spark within him. Suddenly, the room transformed again, shifting into a cozy cafe filled with laughter and chatter. Friends from his past filled the tables, and as they looked up, their faces lit with warmth and encouragement. Charlie raised a cup, grinning wide. "Look at you, Jasper. You've finally found your voice." "Yeah, well, it took a crazy maze and a talking priest to get me here," Jasper chuckled, heart swelling with pride. In that moment, he realized that he wasn't just facing the fear of judgment from others, he was confronting the fear of judgment from himself. The inner critic that had plagued him for years began to fade, replaced by the support of those he had lost touch with, reminding him that his words mattered. As the cafe buzzed with energy, Jasper stood up, feeling a sense of purpose wash over him. "I'm not going to let fear dictate my life anymore. I'm going to write, I'm going to connect, and I'm going to embrace this future." Malachi reappeared, clapping with glee. "Bravo! You have faced the trials of the sacrifice maze and emerged victorious. Is this it? I can leave?" Jasper asked, excitement bubbling within him. "Indeed. But remember, you are not just a victor, you are now a guide," Malachi announced, his voice echoing with a newfound gravity. "You must help others who enter this maze, just as you have helped yourself." Jasper paused, feeling the weight of this new responsibility. "So, I'm the next tour guide for this place," he laughed. "I can see the reviews now. would not recommend if you hate self-reflection. But think of the impact you can make. Malachi insisted, his eyes shining. You can help others face their fears, just as you did. You've learned the power of humor and vulnerability. Now, share that with the world. With a final nod, the walls of the maze began to dissolve, transforming into a bright, open landscape. Jasper stepped out, blinking against the sunlight, feeling lighter than he had in years. He turned back to look at the maze one last time, a smile creeping across his face. Thanks for the memories, and the absurdity. I think I'll take it from here. As he walked away, Jasper felt a renewed sense of purpose. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also filled with possibility. He would write, he would connect, and he would invite others into the maze, not to scare them but to help them discover the strength to face their own fears. And as he strolled into the horizon, he could almost hear the faint echoes of laughter behind him, Gerald's crossword woes, Charlie's encouragement, the uncertainty beast's mocking voice. "What's your plan now, Jasper?" it seemed to ask, but he simply grinned. "I've got this," he replied, his heart light and his spirit soaring. "Let's see where this adventure takes me." And with that, Jasper stepped into his new life, ready to embrace every twist and turn with humor, courage, and a pen in hand.